Hey Rolando, how's it going today?
Good, good. How are you doing, Greg?
I'm great. Welcome to everyone for this week's FBB Q&A section. So if you're not familiar with how these work, Rolando and I are here for the next hour to answer all of your questions. So let us know what you have for us, and we'll be more than happy to answer them.
Awesome. We always look forward to these, don't we, Greg? Because it's a time to really interact with our members. And I do have a few questions already. It looks like from earlier in the week, so we can get started with that and then jump into the questions that are being dropped in the live feed.
Awesome, let's do
Um,
it.
Let me start off with. It looks like I had one here. Where'd it go? Okay. Yuki asks, hello, as a question for tomorrow's live coaching session, when creating a product listing, is it important to maintain the actual phrases of keywords for the Amazon search algorithm?
You want to take that one away?
Yeah, I'll take it. So essentially, and then you can kind of associate this with the back end search terms, right? That there is no logical order. There's the key thing is to use your main keywords to definitely highlight your product in the title, and then you're going to focus on the bullet points, and then you'll focus on the back end search terms. So the phrase isn't necessarily essential. What's essential is that you definitely are using those keywords. And the best thing is to not repeat keywords as well, because you have limited real estate on your title, on your bullet points, back-end search terms. So try to avoid repeating keywords. It doesn't help you additionally on the algorithm. So that would be my take on that. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Greg.
No, I think that's good. I was just looking in here for our next question. Um, let's see. Bunch of them in here. Rob asked, how do taxes if you're in another country but selling in the US? Do you pay taxes in the US? So there's a couple different kinds of taxes in the US. One is, or like the two ones that I guess Amazon sellers would have to be thinking about would be income tax on your business income, which if you don't live in the US, it's my understanding you don't have to worry about that. The other type though is sales tax, which you Amazon now collects and pays that for you in like pretty much every state. So to be honest, most people don't worry about trying to collect and remit sales tax beyond that because Amazon handles it for you in almost all the states now, which that's relatively new. A couple of years ago, they didn't do it for any of the states. So it's kind of nice that sellers don't have to worry about that anymore.
Looks like the next question comes from Angela. She's asking, I've had some refunds with the reason missed fulfillment promise. Does Amazon credit the full amount back because it was their error, or do they deduct the fees?
You want to take that?
And oftentimes with these type of fulfillment errors, you do have to manually request. Sometimes they don't automatically refund. So you would definitely need to just be on it and just do a little more investigative work to make sure that you are getting the refunds on those uh, and getting what's due you. um, it looks like Angela asked the next question. If you do not want returned inventory to be put back into stock, how do you have it removed? Same thing. It's a removal order. It doesn't. You can automate this. There is an option when you go through and do a request to be removed. If you want like it to be automatically shipped to a certain address, or if you want it to be because in some cases, obviously, they could also just trash it or dispose of it for you. So you can make that option, and you can actually automate that process. Um, you would typically, what you would do is in Seller Central, if you go under your where you have your inventory, there's the edit button essentially, and you'll see that you can go through the process of remove inventory, and then you just kind of go through those steps, and it walks you through it.
Cool. I'm going to jump over to our first live question here. It's also from Angela. Angela asks, I've lost the buy box on my PL product. How do I get it back? Can I ask Seller Central to put it back on my listing? And I guess I would like to ask the clarifying question. does someone else control the buy box now, or no one controls the buy box? Because if it's the latter, probably what happened is Amazon believes that the price that you're charging for your product is kind of like unfair outside of market rates. So as a result, they don't have anyone control the buy box. There are kind of some other weird reasons why no one would be controlling the buy box, but that's the case like 90% of the time. If there's someone else also selling your product, that's a little bit more difficult. If they're not really selling your product, but it's a counterfeit product, what you can do is you can order that product. You can take a picture of it, report it to Amazon, and they can get that person kind of like suspended or removed from your listing. If they're not, then unfortunately there's not a lot you can do about it, because technically that's kind of how Amazon works, that it's that anyone else is allowed to sell the same product on the same listing as long as it's a legitimate product.
All right. Looks like Angela has the next question as well. She's asking, I understand that with Amazon's new communications guidelines, we should not use both the review automation tool and a Jungle Scout email campaign that automatically requests reviews. I now just use the review automation tool. What else would we use the email campaign feature in Jungle Scout to do?
You really don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't need to be worrying about sending the email campaigns. Historically, people would do it for things like sending follow-up instructions or whatever else. But honestly, that was the use case for it 99% of the time. And, only like half of those emails get delivered from the email campaign functionality anyway, just because Amazon allows customers to unsubscribe from them. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Okay. Angela looks like has the next question as well. Because of Amazon's limitations on units being sent to Amazon, I had to split the shipment and send some directly to Amazon and some with a different freight forwarder to a third-party logistics company. The supplier then charged me an additional FOB fee because I split the shipment, and they said the freight forwarders each charged them a fee. Does this sound correct? Yes, that is typically what happens. Just always keep in mind that any alterations to the shipment can and will be a charge or assessed a separate fee. You have to think about the manual labor that's involved with it. Typically, they'll have to either repalletize or separate the shipment and relabel and with the palletization process on the freight forwarders end, they've got to shrink wrap it again. And so there's always going to be additional fees if the original order has any changes. So that is common. And looks like Angela has the next question as well. What are your thoughts on allowing sales to overseas buyers? Is this something we should allow in our account options or not?
Yes.
The challenge with that is that you can run into issues of some companies taking advantage of that by using it. And then keep in mind, it's your brand. It just depends, how do you want to expose your brand? Do you have protections in place for those countries that essentially that are trying to purchase your product? I think that's where you're headed with this, that other people want to sell your particular product in another country. Just be mindful that it is your brand that's on the line. So that's the challenge.
Rolando, I think the question's talking about like when you check the option inside of Seller Central settings to allow people from other countries to purchase it, and Amazon will export it for you. And I would say that one's a no-brainer. Go ahead and do that.
Yes. If that's the case, yes, absolutely.
I think that's what they're saying.
There's no risk in that one.
Right.
Because we had that happen, right, with the Jungle sliders, that the supplier really liked the product and they wanted to sell it. And we had to make the long, hard decision and say no because of the brand. We didn't want the brand, or the reputation ruined because, they just poorly managed that product. So, yeah.
All right. We'll take
Arl has the next question.
Yeah, let's take one from the live question box here. Ab says, is there any way of speeding up the seller account verification? I set up my US account about 2 weeks ago and was given the message that Amazon will get back to me within 2 business days, but nothing so far. Unfortunately not. Certain times of the year it takes longer than others, depending on how backed up they are, I guess, like what else they're working on. but I don't know of any ways to speed up that process. Do you, Rolando? I don't think there is.
I apologize, I missed it. I was kind of
Oh, no
I was
worries.
looking at.
Yeah, I don't think there was any way to speed it up. I'm sorry.
Okay, so looks like Arl has the next question, asking, is it a good idea to raise your price when you just launched your product a month ago? It all it depends, right? Is your product selling? Are you getting the sales that you're needing to increase, your ranking on certain keywords? If not, then maybe adjusting the price or increasing the price could harm you. Those are things that you have to look into. Is like, okay, do I have good sales velocity? Okay, good. Maybe I could bump it up. Just don't do large jumps. They could be small little changes to the price, and just test it out and run it for a week at that price. See if there's any changes. So it's basically an A/B test on the pricing. So whenever you do an A/B test, you want to make sure that you have a good time frame. So a week is generally a good time frame to compare to the previous week, and see if it affected you negatively or if it helped you. Then you could also consider maybe bumping it up a little more. And so you just keep testing it, but definitely, if you're not at the stage where you have a little bit of stability, then probably tweaking the price could do more harm than good.
All right, the next one I'm going to take out of the live questions here, and it says, this is from Quasum. It says, if you're finding it difficult to find a niche product with low competition, high demand, can you start off by listing a product that has high medium demand with high medium competition? How realistic is it to achieve good profit margins with the latter approach? If you're finding it hard to find a product that has like high demand with low competition, I would recommend something with lower demand and still low competition for your first product, just because it has a little bit more kind of like room for error for when you're just getting started.
All right. Looks like Oliver has the next question. This looks like he's asking, let's assume you have ordered a product sample, you like the quality, etc., and then place an order with a preferred supplier and are yet to have product images made for your listing. How do you get your product photographer to take pictures for your listing when you don't have the product made yet? Just want to be prepared when I place my first stock order next week and am aware I don't have images yet. You can advance and you could proceed. You want to create your listing as close as possible to we're talking about the title, the bullet points, incorporating your keywords. The images, you can, obviously that's always going to be the last thing. Ideally, in the process of it being manufactured, you received a final sample, and that is true to what exactly the product is going to be, even the boxing and everything, so that you can actually use that as your product photography. So you probably what you would do is you maybe have 2 samples sent to you, one for you to keep, and then one to send to a photographer. Or if they could even send it directly to the photographer, that would save you some time. But that's typically how it works, is just getting that final sample, not necessarily like the order itself.
The next one is from Abs, and it says, do you know if Brexit is going to have an effect on UK sellers, and what the best way of tracking this based on your EU selling experience? Unfortunately, I don't think Rolando and I are too qualified to talk about this. So unfortunately, I just don't know. I'm sorry. I'd help if I can. I still don't know the inner workings of how Brexit's going to affect online businesses in the UK. Rolando, anything to add to that?
It's like anything. I think that we always talk about we're optimists when it comes to just trends and trend lines. And even though there's going to be changes on from the government standpoint, and we just had an election, and that was a big concern in the United States, is how's that going to impact my business as a whole. But we're just optimistic that, irregardless, the trend is online sales, and Amazon is really taking up a greater market share. So it might have a short impact, but overall, I don't see that it's going to be something that to be concerned about or worry. I would say just keep moving forward. Don't let that be something that causes you to reconsider what your approach. Looks like Roy has the next question. Roy asks, I want to sell my product in bulk, for example, 24 units per pack. Amazon inventory loader seems very complex to me, and there are better ways to do the listing upload goods in bulk. Not sure if I follow the question.
Maybe they're asking if there are easier ways to upload in bulk. You think that's what it is?
Yeah, it says Amazon inventory loader seems to be very complex to me. Are there any better ways to do the listing upload goods in bulk? If I'm not mistaken, the way I'm understanding this is you're creating the listing and you're going through the process of creating the listing. It's asking, how it's going to be packaged. Ideally, there isn't another way to do it. The only way to do it is through Seller Central. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but after doing this a couple of times, it becomes easier, the process of going through the whole listing creation.
The next question is from Rafa, and Rafa asks, I'm a first timer, just saw the first module of Bootcamp. I'm planning on investing my savings into it. I want to prepare as best as I can financially. I read a line that would be $3,000 to $4,000, but in reality, the ballpark figure was more like $15,000. How accurate is this? And I'm counting other essential expenses. The big upfront cost is going to be around purchasing your initial inventory. So the ways to make your initial inventory purchase less expensive is going to be either purchasing a product that costs less money. Okay, so instead of trying to sell something that's like a $30 product that maybe you have to buy from China for $10, $15, sell something that's a $15 or $20 product that you can buy from China for like $2, $3, $4, something like that. And then, of course, the order quantity for your initial order. So, if you're selling products that are, if your initial order has to be 1,000 units or 3,000 units or something like that, it can be a pretty expensive order. But, if it's a $5 product and your initial order is 300 or 500 units, then it's gets closer to the area that you're talking about, the $3,000 or $4,000. So it really all comes down to kind of like how much you're willing to invest in that initial order.
All right. Looks like Karam has the next question. Amazon has a 200 unit limit. So if my inventory runs out in 2 to 3 days, how will I meet the new order requirements? And how can I get discounts from the factory on 200 units? So one thing that you can do, one approach to kind of be at the ready and have inventory is most factories will have a minimum order quantity, an MOQ. Sometimes that falls around 1,000 units. You can work with some suppliers, and they may actually, because of the times, they'll probably just create 200 units. But the ideal thing is to get a discount, you probably do need to hit that 1,000 unit threshold. So you could purchase 1,000 units and request them to only ship 200. That's what we've been finding with a lot of sellers. That's worked the most effectively, is that they buy the quantity or the supply that they need, that they've factored into what the monthly sales volume is going to look like, or typically you plan out for 3 months, right? You want to get inventory for 3 months, so you make that initial purchase, and then of course have them just send in kind of like piecemeal, and that's how you would solve that problem in the fact of running out and then falling behind because of the lead time that they need, the supplier needs to be able to create the product, and so that's what I would suggest. And if there is days that there are no set, that let's say you've stocked out, unfortunately there's not much we can do. It's just the times that you would just need to once again get that order processed and shipped to the fulfillment centers. All right. It looks like that's everything that was on the feed itself. So we'll go to the live feed. or questions.
Yeah, it looks like we have one here from Rafa. It says, I'm big into marketing and definitely want to launch my listing with video general A plus content. For this, I have to be basically have like a certified Amazon, right? How long does it take? I have a friend which took him like a year. That's crazy. Is there any way I could do it faster? So what you have to do in order to have the enhanced brand content or A plus listing is you have to have brand registry. The thing that takes a long time for brand registry is registering the trademark of your brand. So if you want to, or if you want to try to like expedite this process, the way that you can do it is by using the IP Accelerator program. We do talk about that inside of the Freedom Builder Bootcamp. But what the IP Accelerator program is you hire one of the lawyers that are like essentially certified kind of by Amazon, and they help you get brand registry even before the trademark's registered, because that's what takes so long about registering the trademark is it's a government organization. It just takes like 8 months or whatever it is. So that's how you can expedite the process and be able to upload a video much sooner.
All right. Looks like keep dropping those questions. It looks like that was the end of it.
Yeah, no kidding. Already got questions.
This is early. Normally it's.
Rolando, did you see any other ones in the Facebook group that we could answer that would be helpful?
Yeah, let me come in here, and it looks like Yuki asked earlier today. Hello, another question. Oh, this is actually for the life coaching session, so it's good that we're covering that one. When you see 2 to 3 FBA sellers under private logo branded products, are they hijackers? Why does Amazon allow this to happen, given that it is your own listing? Do they buy from you and resell it under your listing? Is there any way to avoid this? So yes, typically if you have multiple sellers, let's say, so it's your private label brand, you should be the only seller. But there are situations where, like, if you discounted your product, there are people that go in there and try to do the retail arbitrage on your product, right? They get it at a discounted price and they try to resell it. A lot of times it really isn't nothing to cause alarm or to worry about. Eventually they're going to run out of inventory, and ultimately you have the bulk of the inventory. So it's not an issue. And 9 times out of 10, you could just even message them directly and just kind of use a tactic that we talk about in Freedom Builder Bootcamp about just kind of like nicely tell them that you are the owner and that you will pursue legal action down the road if they continue that. So there's little tactics that we teach to be able to prevent that from happening. Let's see here. I think we have a few more questions in here we could answer. It says, Gilbert asks, he's like, hi there. I signed up for the early reviewer program for one of my products on Amazon, which I launched recently. As you know, the rule is if product receives at least 1 review, they're going to charge you $60. But I found an issue about the program and I want to share it with you all. So I don't know if there's a question here. I guess it's just, while I signed up for the early review program, I asked one of my friends to buy my product and leave an honest review. And he did, but Amazon's platform recognized that reviewer as part of the early reviewer program. And they charged me $60 for that. I called them and they said that cannot do anything about it. So hard for Amazon platform to recognize reviews has been done by my friend or Amazon platform collected. I guess it was just some feedback on the early reviewer program. And unfortunately, that is the fee that they assess. And they, in your case, it sounds like your friend, they kind of coded as a part of the early reviewer program. At the end of the day, that review, as long, you probably didn't want to mention that to Amazon to begin with. But I mean, if it's a good review, like just take it like it's awesome, and you'll still have 5? You get 5 total early reviews, so you still have 4 more opportunities to get some good reviews, some good feedback.
Yeah, I guess my understanding with it was they only consider someone part of the early reviewer program if they received like the offer from Amazon to get the $2 gift card or whatever it is. So I guess I would tell you, or like I'd be curious for you to ask your friend and see whether or not they have like that offer in their email or something like that. Because I know that it's not just like by default the first 5 people to leave reviews are they're not automatically marked as being part of that early reviewer program.
All right. Do we have any more questions in the live? Oh yeah, we do. So we could switch back to that. Oh wow, we got quite a few. I don't even know where we left off, Greg. Where did we leave off? Let's see. I think it was, did we cover E-rolls question? I think not, so we could start there. Is it a good idea to create a deal inside Amazon, assuming that they allow you to create one for newly launched products and then send email to your audience? Again, assuming that you have an email list through your Shopify store with that coupon deal and let them know about this deal. It can definitely help quite a lot with product launch on Amazon. However, I'm not sure if it's even a good idea to send your existing website audience to Amazon, as they may end up buying from your competitor. No, definitely. If you have a list, I would encourage that you create a deal for them to directly to your listing, so that they could go in and purchase. One, it's going to help your sales velocity. Consider if these existing customers purchase, and two, they're good candidates for writing a review. So definitely, if you have a list, use it. I think that's a good approach to a product launch. Thanks, Greg. Rolando, your sister Erica was my professor at Full Sail University. Rafa says, awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. And Oliver says, what are your thoughts on having a video on the product listing? Oh, absolutely. Like if you're referring to like A+ content and having video content, that only increases the opportunity of converting someone who's looking to buying. Because if you could create when you're creating video content, you want to tell a story, you want to be able to convince them why your product is better. So definitely, the more content that the more you could focus on, high quality images, copy that converts in terms of your bullet points and descriptions, A+ content. When you get to that phase, it's all the better, because you just keep the person engaged for a longer period of time. You're walking them through so that they could go ultimately and check out. Earl asks, how do you get customers and users honest feedback on the brand name you select even before you register your trademark? Say you are creating a baby feeding bottle and you are thinking to select My Baby Bottle as your trademark and would like to hear feedback on that from moms, not just friends around any platform or website. Probably one of the best platforms would be like groups, Facebook groups. Get them, like there's going to be different, expecting mothers Facebook group. Let's say in your example, maybe that would be a good place, and say, hey, I'm considering on launching a product. I would just like some feedback. Which of these names resonates with you? And that's probably going to be one place. Trying to think of others. Definitely, of course, friends and family. That's always the easy one, the easy go-to. But yeah, I would say try some different Facebook groups. It's probably going to be some valuable information returned to you there.
Cool. The next one says, Yuki asks, concerning the keyword research algorithm in Amazon, is it best to put the most used keywords in the title rather than the back end field? And yes, that's best practice to put the most searched keywords in the title. Andre just put in there, for people with new brands, there's the link to the IP Accelerator program. Awesome. Elvis then asked, I find that profit margins are pretty tight when doing PPC and the discounts on products that are within the $15 to $20 price point. How long usually do sellers go before they can get to regular pricing? And I'd say, like, once your sales start to pick up to where you're happy, maybe that's a few units a day or 10 units a day, and you've gotten a few good reviews, I think that's the point where we could try to start exploring a little bit higher price, or really starting to cut the PPC spend that's not performing very well a little bit more aggressively.
Okay, it looks like there's good. Oh, he just added to that there's good competition, but yeah, that definitely covers it. I would say just to add to that with PPC. The most important thing is that you're constantly optimizing your PPC as well, because I think you're always going to have a situation where your ACoS is going to be relatively high when you're first starting out. And the way to bring down the ACoS is to just constantly be optimizing. And there will be a time where and in the initial stages, it's definitely a little bit more involvement, but as time goes on, little by little, you can, rather than optimizing every week, then it just becomes a monthly process. Errol has the next question. It says, asking, seems like you can now open Amazon, in parentheses, Amazon allows that without special written permission, multiple seller accounts. I do have one more company, and I like to open another seller account for that company. Did you personally or someone you know try without any issues? Obviously, I do not want to risk my existing seller account. And just, I mean, the short answer is that it is permitted now by Amazon, so you really don't run into a risk, but you have to go through their process. I would get in contact directly with seller support and coordinate with them. That way, there, of course, it's by the books. Okay, it looks like Nemo asks, hi, Andre, did you get the brand registry after that website, and how long did it take? Okay, so it looks like you're referring back to the IP Accelerator program. What's been your experience, Greg, in terms of like length of time with the IP Accelerator? I know it's definitely light years ahead of trying to go through this process on your own. And so I would personally say it's a little, in terms of price, you could probably find, you could probably trademark your brand through an attorney on your own, and it might be a little less, but it's so much worth the investment so that it really does get processed quickly. And in the meantime, you can already start to sell. You can't use the brand, but you can start selling without the without having being brand registered. But then the switch is just automatic and a lot easier. Let's see here. So then we got Andre asks, when you submit your application to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, you get a serial number, which is what Amazon wants. I was enrolled within 48 hours a month ago, approximately. So, so he's just answering. Well, thanks for that feedback, Andre. Okay. So, okay, Andres, he's just saying, I don't mean to hijack this great session. I've just mentioned this so many times in the last month, nobody knows about it. No, definitely, like we were saying, it's probably, if you go with the alone, it's going to take a lot of time, and probably even you'll end up spending a little more money. With the IP Accelerator program, it's just so easy, and it's very fluid with Amazon. Okay, let's see here. Errol asks, if you have one product with two different colors, say red and green, again, let's say the product can be used for both dogs and cats. When you create variations, would you use dog in one and cat in another listing title? And in the description, key attributes to gain better organic traffic, or would it be too confusing to customers? What would you do? Typically, the ideal thing is that you have that, that parent and child structure. So you're basically you would want to create them all under, I guess you would say, the same listing. However, and the reason being is that if someone is there, it's the likelihood, let's say you said cat or dog, they probably have a cat and they probably have a dog. So if the product is a good fit, for the customer, if you see that it's a good user experience, then yes, I would definitely keep it on the same, under the same parent listing. And that way there, when you create the swatch, maybe you'll have like an image of cat, and then on the swatch, an image of the dog. So that way there, when a person hovers over, they can see the difference or just visually, they can see it very, very easily. But in addition to that, you would go in and you would change the title out. You would change the bullet points. So that way there also, that listing in and of itself will rank. And those keywords will rank. So you definitely want to keep it together, because you could run PPC. Think about it. You could run PPC to one listing and it could probably trigger another sale. Let's see here. Andre, it looks like it says, Greg, it's not IP Accelerate. It's not IP Accelerate. I didn't have to get an Amazon recommended attorney, CPA. You submit your information and they send you an invitation as if your trademark was 100% completed. Let's see. Ah, got it. Got it. So Karam looks like has the next question. Amazon has 200 units, 200 unit limit. So if my inventory runs out in 2 to 3 days, how will I meet the new orders requirements? And how can I get discounts from factory on 200 units? I think we touched on this earlier, Karam. However, I'll just add to that with the, let's see, you mentioned something here. What happens once you stock out, Amazon just in a way closes the listing. So there's nothing on your part that you need to do in order to meet, there isn't going to be orders beyond the point of you stocking out. So you won't be able to fulfill any orders. It'll just, your listing will just, the button to check out will say currently out of stock. And so they just, they just have to wait until you get your inventory back to Amazon. So there, that kind of solves that issue. But definitely, we were talking about earlier, you just have to negotiate with factories. If you're looking to get 200 units, be very explicit, saying that that you're selling on Amazon, and right now there's only a 200 unit limit. Oftentimes they know already, because they have several sellers that are approaching them with the same concern, same issue. And so during this time, they will more than likely work with you. It's not normal times, and it's not what typically happens on Amazon. But then again, that's why we are entrepreneurs. We're very scrappy, and we're able to figure things out on the fly. All right. Alvis asks, my freight forwarder mentioned that shipping rates have gone up. Is this a holiday season thing? How long does this surcharge last? January or February? Are there other periods in the year when the shipping rates fluctuate? Any thoughts on that, Greg?
Sorry, I was reading some of the other questions.
No problem. To answer, I guess the short answer is yes. Shipping rates do increase during this time of year, during the fourth quarter. And then because of the high volume, right, the volume just increases. Possibly another time frame to keep in mind is we have the Chinese New Year coming up. That's another time frame that rates can increase. Usually the summer months, there's not as much volume. There's not, they call it the summer doldrums, right? But of course, with COVID, it's really changed everything. We really don't know what to expect. It might be that during this time frame in general, just because of the extra precautions and measures that freight forwarders along with suppliers are taking, then of course there may be some changes in rates for that as well. So just always, I'd say just keep a pulse, find out what the current rates are, what they're charging you, and sometimes you could even negotiate with your freight forwarder. I mean, I've done that where there's a fee that they want to charge, and I'm just like, I don't think that that's appropriate, you know, given that I've been a longstanding customer, whatever the case may be, and they'll work with you as well. Keep in mind, these are all businesses. They want your business, and that's one of the best things that you could do, is be able to just kind of negotiate and work out deals. All right, looks like that was the last question we have so far. Let's see here. See if I can find some more questions in the group. Let's see. Philip asked earlier today, does adding a surprise free gift in Amazon order packages violate the terms and conditions? As long as you're not asking for a review as a result of this free gift, it won't be a problem. As long as and what I always say is, as long as it also doesn't affect the user experience, the customer user experience, and then it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, who doesn't want something in addition for their initial purchase? So that doesn't violate the terms of service. The only times it would is if, in fact, you know, as it's like, you could get this gift if you or if you leave a stellar review. That would be a violation of Amazon's terms of service. Let's see here. Do we have any more live questions? Looks like we do. Okay, Karam asked, I have some product ideas, but I need guidelines of some expert to execute them. So how the bootcamp team help me, or how can I contact them for sharing information? So what you'll want to do, the most effective way is to reach out to support@freedombuilderbootcamp.com. Now, keep in mind, we stay away from product selection. Like we can't do that for you, because in the end, that is the most important critical skill that you need to develop, is going through the product research phase, identifying products, and then, you know, narrowing down the product selection. But we could give feedback as far as, you know, what to look for, what not to, you know, what to stay away from, what to stay clear from. However, when the whole product selection, you're going to eventually narrow it down, you know, based on the different methodologies that we teach. Now, the other thing that I want to add, the way that we could help with that in this process is, of course, if you have any technical problems on like how to navigate Seller Central, and in addition to that, you also have the one free listing review. So I would say take advantage of that. That's definitely you know, a huge bonus, a huge benefit. And yeah, so there's several ways. Of course, the content is constantly going to be refreshed, renewed to meet the times. And yeah, I would say that those are just quite a few, the number of ways that come to the top of my mind. Angela asks, are there plans to create a more advanced PPC module in the bootcamp? Yes, there is. So it's actually in the process right now as we speak. So that is definitely in the works. And then Kasim asks, is the 200 inventory limit a US restriction, or does it apply to the UK too? How long is this limit going to last? Suppose this can be good negotiating tactics with suppliers in China. To my knowledge, it's just the US. And it definitely is. That's why I say that you'll want to be able to, you know, to negotiate that with the supplier and tell them that that's the current restriction in the United States, and hopefully they can accommodate. Hey, Swad, how are you? Giving a shout out. So where are the questions? Keep bringing them, keep dropping them. I'm going to hop on over to the main thread in the meantime and see if there's any more. Let's see.
Hey, Swed.
Unanswered questions. Let's see. So, what are the questions? Looks like we've answered all of them here, so I'm just trying to find one that's not answered. Okay. There's a question from Chandana, and it's well, it's two questions. It says, for product photography on my listing, I have my product sample, but I don't have the product with the logo on it. How would I go about getting product photos? I'm considering asking my supplier, but I have also heard about prep companies that I can ship my shipment to, and they can do this for me. Not sure how to go about this. We kind of touched on this earlier, that you want to get a final sample. Any and all suppliers are very familiar with this process of sending a final version of your product, and they'll send that directly to you, or you can actually just have them send that directly to your product photographer. So that would probably be the most effective way of tackling that. And then the second question is, I'm only starting out with 200 units because of Amazon's COVID limitation, but I'm not sure how fast the product will sell out. And I'm nervous about running out of stock and being out of stock for a while. My supplier makes more inventory and sends it over. Should I just order more now and put it aside in a third-party logistics storage unit in the United States? So ideally, yes. Ideally, what you want to always do is, when you're launching a product, you want to have at least a 3-month supply. Now, given the current situation, so you're looking at the numbers, right? And you're saying, okay, well, I want to sell a minimum. My goal is to sell a minimum of 10 a day, which equates to 300 units a month, roughly. And now we're talking about, if I want to plan ahead for at least 3 months supply, we're talking about 900 units. So in this case, you could order, the minimum order quantity, and have 200 sent to Amazon, and then that other 700 sent to your to your 3PL. And that would be the ideal situation to do, because it's very easy to get shipments in from a US based third-party logistics company, just shipped directly to Amazon. And in some cases, you can actually even fulfill by merchant through a third-party logistics company. So that would be the ideal scenario. All right. Any new questions, Greg?
Yeah, it looks like Swed says, my question is, how long would you recommend spending on product research? Some people will devote a lot of time to it and they get it knocked out pretty quickly, like in a week or two. What's more common, though, is people spend a month or 2 or maybe even 3 months to really make sure they kind of find that product that's going to work well for them. Karem said, Greg and Rolando, do you have any future plans to visit the UK? I'd love to. Global travel is really difficult right now, of course, because of COVID, but when they kind of open back up, I'd love to visit.
Yeah, same here. I actually had a trip planned in April to visit the UK, and that all fell through.
This past April?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was going to be like a Euro tour. I was going to start in Italy and end and fly out of the UK, but
nice.
Yeah, that was peak. That was when it really hit hard in April.
Oliver said, did you answer this or I missed it? My product niche is high demand, low competition. And most of the products in the niche look almost identical. What is the best way to attract customers aside from good images, price point, or bundling? Are there any other good ways I'm set on a product, and the fact that they all look so similar is my only concern? I'd say that should be a concern. I mean, I think like what's helpful for me is to put myself in the shoes of the end buyer and just think like, okay, if it was you and you landed on that search page, which one would you buy? Like what you care about, you probably want to make sure you're getting a high quality product and that it's a good price. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to give good advice with this without knowing what your product is. But I'd say, yeah, I think it's just beneficial to put yourself in the shoes of the customer. Just think like, okay, like what would you choose out of all these and why?
All right. Max is asking, I just received my first stock order. When I ordered the product, it was ranked an 8 with low competition, high demand in the Jungle Scout. And now that I have it, it's now a 3 with much higher competition. My question is, how do you know if you should continue pursuing this product or start looking for a new one? So in this case, I would say one of the things that I like to do is just constantly run the numbers. Sometimes when competition starts to come in, it can get a little scary. But if the numbers work in terms of your profitability, and you have a little bit of space because you're always going to be a step ahead of them in the sense of if you use PPC to your advantage and you do the right launch, you will be a step ahead of most. And so that's why I say, as long as the numbers align and you have enough of a buffer that you can budget for, knowing that you're going to have this expense of, PPC, then, that's always going to be kind of like your gauge is, your profitability. That's your gauge. That's always what's going to come down to, because the competition is always going to increase no matter what product you get into. If you think about it, over time, more sellers are entering the space. So it's not so much about, competition. The way I see it is the most critical thing is what are you doing that you can stay ahead of the competition? What's the key differentiator that you're bringing to the table? Is it that your product, you've improved it somewhat and it's, that in itself is going to draw more customers? Is it the fact that, you have some, like I said, your marketing strategy is robust? So I would say that that's probably what it comes down to. Let's see, Swad, how important is the opportunity score? So we kind of touched on that because Max had an opportunity score, it sounds like, of 8, and then it went down to a 3. I think that it's definitely, you take it with a grain of salt. You have to run the numbers on everything. You never just base it off of the opportunity score. Once again, you go through and you look at the competition on a more, like put them under a microscope and see more details about that particular product. And then also just run the numbers. What's your profitability? We're kind of going back to that.
All right. Looks like for the last question of the day, we'll take it from Ovu. Says, the product I found 2 months ago is getting very competitive right now. Should I just find something else new since I'm just starting out? And, it's like any of the products, if you give them a long enough period of time, are going to get a little bit more competitive. I'd say, like, if you're well down your path and you found a good supplier and a good sample and everything, I'd probably just go for it. If you haven't and you haven't gotten samples yet, then that's when you kind of think about looking at something a little bit different. But yeah, that wraps up today's session of the Ask Us Anything. Rolando, it's been fun chatting with you. Thank you everyone for submitting all your questions. I know Rolando and I enjoy chatting with y'all and doing this. And yeah, we'll see you again next time.
All right. Take care, guys. Keep crushing it.
Thanks, Rolando. Cheers.